I guess I'm up now. Hi, everyone. My name is John Crable, and I currently serve as one of the co-coordinators for our Justice Matters Homeless Committee alongside Steve Ozark. And I'm also one of the co-coordinators for the Winter Emergency Shelter Program, along with Tony Kaufman. I'm here now today at the Days Inn Hotel. It's right behind me, where literally every night, well, and every morning for that matter, since December 23rd, Tony and I, along with many wonderful volunteers, have had the honor to make sure that an average of 100 guests per night are not left out in the cold. Since December 23rd and through this past Saturday night, I can report to you that we've touched a total of 328 unique individuals with this program. Now, Tony and I are both members of Justice Matters, but that's not why we're doing this. We're doing this simply as concerned citizens. We're doing this having both experienced working at last year's emergency shelter, which, as most of you know, were held in basements of churches, not a hotel like this one. We're doing this with the knowledge going into this winter that approximately 130 identified persons that were not housed in the Lawrence Community Shelter, not housed in the Woody Park Tent City, or not housed at the Econo Lodge program, and subsequently at least that many people with literally nowhere to go when the temperatures fell below 40 degrees. We're doing this in hopes that no one dies this winter in Lawrence, Kansas, because they are homeless and because they are unsheltered. Now, all that said, this what's behind me right now, this emergency winter shelter, is not why I'm here today. I'm here today to share with all of you that this is not the answer to how we as a community deal with homelessness. This, yet another winter emergency shelter, is but another Band-Aid on what is obviously a gaping wound in our community, and what I personally believe is an invisible crisis in our community. And I'm here today to share with you that this that is behind me right here need not be necessary when the next winter comes. As a community of believers, as a community of faith, as members of and or supporters of the organization of people who proudly call themselves Justice Matters, we, my friends, you and I, must now go from this place that's behind me right now. We must go upstream. We must go upstream as other communities our size, and even communities much larger than ours, have themselves made that journey upstream. Communities such as Norman, Oklahoma, Rockford, Illinois, and Bergen County, New Jersey, just to name three, have gone upstream. And that journey took them to a place where they were able to literally end homelessness in their communities and their counties. They brought homelessness to functional zero, and they've kept homelessness at functional zero for both the chronic and the veterans within their homeless community. And they've done all of that by adopting a set of strategies that's called Built for Zero. Built for Zero is a process and a system that leaves no one on the streets. No one on the streets. It starts by identifying by name who is homeless and identifying why they are homeless and getting them housed. First, getting them housed. And once housed, getting them stabilized, and once stabilized, getting them connected with a direct set of services that is unique to their circumstances. My friends, all that to say, please do not take my words for granted, and do not assume that all of this is just speculation or opinion on my part, but rather hear now the real life story from someone who has been there and someone who has done that and done this within a community of over 1 million people. My friends, here's Julia from Bergen County, New Jersey.
Good afternoon. I'm Julia Orlando. I'm the director of the Bergen County Housing, Health, and Human Services Center in Bergen County, New Jersey. I'm so happy to be with you here today to talk a little bit about our experiencing in dealing with homelessness. That very much, when I look at your video from the Days In, we were in a very similar situation not too long ago. Within the last 5 years ago, we were faced with very, very similar challenges. In fact, for us, we had 4 different shelters, temporary shelters, that were really not adequate to meet the needs of our folks experiencing homelessness. Very much the same way you all are dealing with 4 different emergency placements for people that are experiencing homelessness in your community. And in my community of 1 million people, we have created an environment now where we have reached functional zero for chronic homelessness as well as veteran homelessness. And we're also working on ending homelessness for youth and also for families. So our goals as a community is to end homelessness for everyone. And when I look at your community and I look at the dedication that I see in the videos that I watched, I can see that you're a community that really wants to end homelessness. And I'm here to tell you today that you can. And there are some simple ingredients that go along with doing this. It doesn't mean that it's easy, but in terms of tried and tested, there are communities across the nation that are ending veteran homelessness and they are ending chronic homelessness. So we do know that this methodology works. First and foremost, you need to make a shift from managing homelessness to ending homelessness. And I think when you're working with ending homelessness and that's your foundation, then all your decisions and the way that you work really will come together and coalesce to move you towards that goal of ending homelessness, rather than just keeping people in shelters or just feeding them or giving them clothing, but actually giving them the thing that they really need, which is housing. So homelessness is a complex social challenge. And so it takes an approach that can address those needs of people that are experiencing homelessness in your community. And so for us in Bergen County, one of the things that was first and foremost for us was political will. It's really very important that your political leadership is committed and dedicated to eradicating homelessness in your community. You need to have that foundation because all of the steps that come from that really help you solidify your attempt to address that challenge. In addition to that, you need to have leadership. You need to have strong leaderships in your community. I play a leadership role in my community. I make sure that I am involved right on the ground level, whether it's being involved in the shelter that I'm running, to being on my COC council, to presenting in the community and around the country to other communities in ending this work. It is truly a commitment and really a lifelong journey for me to address homelessness in communities. In addition to that, collaboration. And what I can tell you is during this pandemic, we had to close down our shelter and move people to motels. So we didn't have our usual command center that we have always had and that we had during our attempts to end homelessness. And what we learned is that because of our collaboration, because we were working with each other in such an intense and urgent way to end people's homelessness, we were still able to house 100 households since last March. And I think that's a testament to the importance of collaboration when you're trying to do this work to end homelessness. In addition to that, aligning your resources. You really want to make sure that people who need the most in your community are getting the most to not only get housed, but also to remain housed. And that really is at the heart of social justice, is making sure that people who really need resources in order to be successful are going to be able to have access to those resources. We have to identify and be accountable to all persons experiencing homelessness, especially those unsheltered. So what that means is that everyone experiencing homelessness in your community, like in my community, is on a list. We call it a by name list. It's now what's called a housing prioritization list, but everyone in our community is on that list. So when I see that you have had 285 households, individuals who came to the Days Inn for housing within 10 days, that tells me that those are people that need to be added to a by name list, that we want to get working on housing those people right away, as soon as they're showing up into our community. So for us in my county, we have anyone experiencing homelessness in our community, anywhere in our system, in the hospital, in a jail, in a shelter, even people that are not homeless yet, but they're at risk of homelessness, those people are added to our list. And even those people that are at risk, we're monitoring them to see if there's any change in their environment. So by doing this, we can capture our entire universe of all the individuals that need assistance in our community. I think it's really important to understand too, that in a community of 1 million people, this year on our point in time count, we had less than 10 people that were unsheltered, which that really speaks to the fact that we prioritize people unsheltered getting into shelter, and we also do a great deal of work to prevent homelessness. Those two things have to be done at the same time in order to not only end homelessness, but keep new people from coming into our system. That's especially important during this time of our pandemic. So it's very important that we understand that, you can't solve something that you can't see. So by having these by name lists, by having a knowledge of the folks that are in your community, and knowing who they are and where they are, we can really work to reducing that number with a sense of urgency. I think one of the most important things about doing this work that we experience is also reducing the barriers. It can't be hard to get into shelter. We can't make it difficult for people to access shelter, and especially shelter should not be conditional on helping people to get housed either. So accessing those services has to be critical, and it has to be something that people don't get discouraged and decide to sleep outside. And then we have fatalities during the winter, which is heartbreaking. And we just can't have that in our communities. We need to make sure people, at the very least, are getting off the street and into shelter. So I think for my community, and what I see to be really critical in this work is holding each other accountable. And we do this by having frequent phone calls and meetings with our partners across different disciplines and different agencies. That is so important, is holding each other accountable. And so by having these conversations, we are moving away from a reliance on this emergency shelter model and really moving towards a housing first methodology, which really emphasizes the importance of getting people immediately into housing. That is such a critical foundation for us here in Bergen County, and also for the other communities across the country that have been successful in ending a type of homelessness. They have all adopted a housing first methodology. It really is critical to this work. I want to leave you today with a quote from Dr. Martin Luther King, and this was a quote that he gave at his Nobel Peace Prize address. "There's nothing new about poverty. What is new, however, is that we have the resources to get rid of it. The same is true for homelessness. We can end homelessness. We know how to end homelessness, and so we must end homelessness." Thank you so much for having me part of your presentation today in this message of hope.